our job is really to make it easy for the customer to make a decision, whether it's purchase or research, about what they want, where they want, when they want, right? And our job is to make it frictionless.
Hello, everyone. This is the Commerce Experience Podcast. As a show, we aim to equip e-commerce professionals with the tools and insights necessary to thrive in this ever-evolving space. I'm your host, Elena, Senior Community Marketing Manager at Bloomreach, and today I am joined by Prakash, Senior Director of Marketing Analytics at Signet Jewelers. They're the world's largest retailer of diamond jewelry and specialty jewelry in the US, UK, and Canada. Operating 2,800 stores, you might have heard some of their brands, K Jewelers, Zales, and Jared, just to name a few. But Prakash has been quite the titan of e-commerce himself. Now, he worked for companies like Motorola, OfficeMax, Gojo Industries, the makers of Purell, with a background in AI and machine learning, data science, and go-to-market strategies. So today we're going to get into the power of data in e-com, data privacy, ethics, and how to cultivate a data-driven culture at your company, all while using AI. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Elena. Happy to be here. Happy to be on the Commerce Experience show.
Yeah, so great to have you. I know we've been trying to get together for a while now, so happy to have you. And your background is so interesting to me, and you've been a part of product development, corporate strategy, marketing analytics. And I want to see if you could share how your unique background has really equipped you to kind of bridge that gap between the technical world of data science and the corporate world of business objectives, where results really mean everything. Can you share a little bit about that with us?
Very happy to do so. Thank you. So my background and experience actually has been a huge asset. As a person, I'm multilingual. I can speak many different languages. My mother tongue, typical of someone who grew up in India, you learn to speak 3-4 languages. And I feel like that's exactly what's happening in my professional career as well. I started out in the world of technology, pure tech, building products, did my MBA, went into corporate strategy consulting at Deloitte. And then in this role, I'm able to basically straddle both the worlds. I get to work with like the best minds on my team, data scientists, highly technical, and talk about the outcomes of the world of AI and data science and how it can drive business decisions with my stakeholders, who are all very senior business leaders, right? They are interested in the world of technology, but not too much about the algorithms. They want to know, okay, tell me the so what and the now what of all the beautiful crunching that your team did. So me being able to explain the business problem and getting my team to focus on the outcomes and being able to translate it in both ways is something that kind of happened organically. I didn't plan for it. This is not how I thought it would end up, but my background honestly has helped me move between the teams and the roles and be super effective, if I may say so.
Yeah, no, that's super important, because the more dynamic you are and the more you're able to kind of break down those hard, complex problems to the shareholders, like they don't care about the nitty gritty details. They just want to know how you're impacting the bottom line. So it's like, how do we take the numbers and the complicated stuff, which you have expertise in, and then also bring it to their attention and make it feel impactful, so they get on board and they fund your projects and they make sure that they know exactly what you're doing. So that kind of leads me into my next thought. I mean, every project typically has a set of shareholders that help manage that, but how can teams maybe use these different perspectives to their advantage instead of letting it become a bottleneck?
It's a great question. We deal with that almost every day. I was working on a very similar thing, high impact, a few weeks ago that we brought to closure last week. So it's very important. The most important thing in these kind of projects is to have a common understanding, I should say, of the problem and the outcomes of the different stakeholders. You have different people looking at the same thing, but from a very different lens. It means different. While there is a core of similarity, the impact of the problem for somebody in the world of IT, somebody in the world of um, let's say marketing, somebody in the world of digital CX, they see the same thing. So it's very important for us to say, okay, what is it that we are actually trying to solve for? And how would the outcomes will impact them? So everyone usually is looking for a slightly different outcome. It's not that makes their own world better and not necessarily too worried about the others or the other stakeholders, and rightly so. I mean, the VPs and the SVPs, their primary goal is to get their problem solved, and that's what they're coming to us for. Even that's so getting that problem defined very correctly, the outcomes and the success criteria, and what does success look like, is very, very important. To me, that's like defining the North Star and taking and building that. The other thing that's very important is to always understand that all data projects is not really about the data. They're actually about the problem and the people. People are at the center. People make decisions. People are impacted. So the more time we spend on understanding the people, working with the people, and communicating with them, that takes care of 90% of the work, right? That's the data part, the analysis part, the modeling part. Those things are more in our control. Where things are not really in our control and really, really work, at least from where I sit, is actually managing stakeholders, communications, alignment. That's
Yeah, and the data probably helps you feel more empowered when speaking with them because you're like, here's what's actually working. Here's what I can tell you for a fact. The data never lies. I think that's something you can take and have in your back pocket to where you can make sure that they feel heard and their problems are being solved. But like you said, I mean, if you're working for a big company, you've got different stakeholders, different needs, different interests, and you are kind of bridging the gap. And I think every organization needs people like that to where you could speak both languages metaphorically from that
yes.
standpoint. So I think that's amazing that you've been able to do that for your stakeholders and your work at Signet.
Yeah, I'm very happy. It's a very enjoyable work. I mean, being able to drive impact, right? At the end of the day, it's like you get to see the work my team gets to see. We get to see, okay, we did this. So what? What changed because of that? And being able to see that is very rewarding.
And data being making yourself or your stakeholders be able to make data driven decisions, I think is so empowering. So that leads me to my next question. What do you think? I guess in what ways have advancements in AI kind of transformed the data science and analytics, particularly when it comes to enhancing the customer experience? I know with your background, you've certainly had a front row seat to things changing rapidly over the years, but more widespread access to AI is a big part of that. So, I guess how do you see the role of human intervention playing a part in optimizing the use of AI and making sure that that technology enhances rather than hinders kind of our overall path to success?
Fantastic question, actually. We have been, and again, this is a journey. Everybody knows that AI, or AGI is we are in the very early stages of that. We at Signet have been leveraging what I would say cutting edge technology from the time I've been here, and I'm sure others would probably say, hey, and I've been here for almost 5 years now, would say, okay, we have always been at the forefront of maximizing um, technology to drive business outcomes and experience for our customers, right? So we've always been adopting new technology um, with at a reasonably good pace. Um, so with respect to AI, I'd say as a team, for our team and for the company, we have transitioned to the cloud over the last few years. That's opened up a lot of avenues for us to leverage new technology. You're using, specifically with respect to CX, you're using a CDP. And my team works very closely with using CDP, and you can think of things like, hey, I can do personalized marketing to customers at scale, right? We want to improve. We don't want to bombard customers with almost every message that we can think of. We want to give customers messaging and content, and that's actually very relevant to them based on where they are in the journey. Right? If they're early on in the purchase journey, it's more educational. Middle, it's more about the products that they would be interested in knowing what we know about them in a privacy safe manner, into getting them to try, let's say, new products. Where you say, hey, based on what you think of it like a Netflix or Amazon recommendation, we know you bought X, Y, and Z. Other people bought this like this. We give you a few recommendations, something like that. The same thing happens with content. We know and it's again a journey. We know what we think would work best for you rather than bombarding you with 20 messages. AI in CX is going to be significantly better. And we are going to be doing some really exciting stuff. And actually, when you actually get on our site, there are AI bots that has a human interface. And the initial conversation is with an AI agent, but people take over. And we have virtual JCs. We have got our people actually taking over, and this kind of answers to your, like the last question is super exciting. Hey, how do you get the human interface in it? So AI starts the conversation, people are having, and then the human being comes in, and it's seamless. And it's very exciting what we do with AI and how this is actually going to grow, because it's very early days.
Yeah, it's evolved even just in the last few years, but like even just seeing how you guys have been able to leverage it. Are you seeing a big uptick, and is it making your teams a little bit more productive? What are your thoughts around that?
Oh, yes. So think of AI. We think of AI as kind of, if I don't want to use the two splits of it, but it effectively is in that way. So the AI that helps my team and other technical teams and others inside the organization better. So we use AI tools that shorten our coding time, our testing time, our ability to bring products to market faster, right? So that's one aspect of AI. And then there is the other aspect of AI, which is, hey, how do we make the lives of our customers better? How do we make our communication with them, our interaction with them, every touch point more relevant, more fruitful, right? So AI to us is very, very different for internal use.
Well, I was going to say too, for the industry of diamonds and jewelry, it's an expensive purchase. So you really don't want to get it wrong, and you really want to give people a luxury experience almost. And I recently did an episode where we talked about, is the luxury e-commerce bubble about to burst? Like, are people still searching for luxury items online, or are they coming into the store and actually wanting to like touch it and put their hands on it? So I think that is interesting for your industry in particular, because you're trying to like take that in-person interaction and that great customer service and bring it online and still give them those personalized messages by what you know about the customer. And every consumer really appreciates that. Not every consumer, but I think a lot of consumers appreciate it, because I'm always like, you can have my data if my experience is 10 times better than it would be if you didn't have my data. So sometimes people are really open to that, and then sometimes people don't even know what's happening behind the scenes. They just know they had a good experience, right?
Yes. Great point. Great point. I mean, for us, we are omni, as you mentioned, right? So we're in store and online, and we do see a good, healthy mix of customers choosing to buy certain things online, certain things store, sometimes going looking at it in the store, then buying online, sometimes looking at it online, then going in the store. So every permutation combination that you can think of, we experience that. And our job is really to make it easy for the customer to make a decision where they want to, whether it's purchase or research about what they want, where they want, when they want, right? And our job is to make it frictionless.
Yeah,
I know it's a buzzword, but it's really, that's our job. I mean, it's to improve experience, and it's critical that it's frictionless.
That's, I think, the key. We talk to a lot of retailers that's what we're thinking about. That is the prize, like the prize, that is the focus. And consumers' demands are higher than ever. And we talk about this a lot on this show, but it's like, how do we keep up? How do we make sure that their experience is as frictionless as possible? So it's cool that you guys are thinking about it. And I want to go back to the data piece, because I know the data helps you obviously make those informed decisions on like what operationally you'll do to give them that experience. But let's be real, it's not just about the numbers, it's about the story that they tell and the impact that they have. But we kind of talked about, giving your data away in exchange for a personalized experience. We have to be aware of the privacy and the ethics at the same time. So I'm wondering if you could share maybe your philosophy on maintaining that high standard of quality of data while navigating those crucial considerations, and what your thoughts are on that.
It's a beautiful question again. I'm very happy you're speaking about it, right? So data privacy is at the center of customer data, right? This is not product data. This isn't, so data by itself is got all these different slices, right? You have, if you're analyzing or using product data, where it's sold, what happened, movement, inventory data, supply chain data, that's got a different set of requirements. But when you're actually working with customer data, there's a totally different level of requirements, because the customers are giving you that data and there's an inherent trust built into it, right? So here at Signet, we've got a cross-functional team. It's not just my team that's responsible for the data privacy piece, right? We have legal, we have InfoSec, we have audit. It's my team, the marketing teams. We are all responsible to on aligning on what data is used for what and what it is not. What are the systems that are built in? So there is internal transparency and around how to use data. And there are times when people will say, hey, it happens generally when somebody's new to the company. I'll say, hey, Prakash, can you give me this data? Sorry, I have it. You can't have it. I can tell you about it in summary. I can answer questions about it and about customers in aggregate, but I cannot literally give you in plain text ABCD about customers. They trust us to use it. So what I want to if there's one thing that I want people to kind of understand and take away is data privacy is at the center of being able to use customer data, and for that, you have to have a cross-functional infrastructure set up. It's not just IT or marketing who are responsible for that. It goes way beyond that. So we constantly have communications with our legal team, with our InfoSec team, and when they hear about something, as the laws are changing all the time, right? So I look to the experts in the company to guide me and to put out in not just me, but also the rest of the business to understand, hey, this is what's changing. So maybe X was possible last year, won't be possible going forward, right? So it's a cross-functional effort, and you have to stay on it. Like a lot of things with data, it's a capability and it's a journey, and you got to keep up with it.
Well, and everything is changing so quickly too. I know that there's been some new requirements for the European countries and how they capture data. And I think that's influencing how the US is moving from a data privacy standpoint. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that that makes sense?
It definitely makes sense, right? If the world is changing, customers want more, and I think transparency is very good, because still there are elements that can be better and will get better over time. Data privacy is only going to uh, become more important. I mean, there are always two sides to the coin, right? I'm a customer at times, and I'm a marketer at times, and I can straddle both worlds. And there is a trade off. And as companies, we understand how to handle customer data with care, with the level of diligence that's necessary, and systems get built, processes get built, to handle that. It's going to be very important. I mean, especially in retail, where you're a DTC business, having customer data with care is going to become more and more. I wouldn't say as much as healthcare, but you're kind of in some ways headed down that path.
Well, I was going to say, you kind of mentioned having a good infrastructure set up behind the scenes, but that was going to be my next question. Just from your perspective, where do you think brands could really step up their game to not only like respect the privacy and obviously honor that trust that the customers are giving, but also just ethically leverage that data for better outcomes? Is it the communication behind the scenes? Is it the infrastructure that's set up to be able to like deliver those messages in summary? I guess what are your thoughts there?
I honestly think it's a culture thing. You have to, because it's the culture and understanding that you have to, the ways of working have to change, right? If you're already not there, you're saying, okay, I wish I could do this the way we used to do it. Sorry, times past, different. You have to play, the game is different. Customers demand and legislation is there. So we have to do it differently, but it's a culture thing.
You gotta navigate it and adapt and just be ready for any changes that come, but also, like, have your finger on the pulse, it seems.
It requires a lot of different people with different levels of expertise to actually make this work and work all the time, right? It's basically what it is that you've got the engine of the business, right? It's running a certain way. It's that in and of itself is very cross functional. And and in the world of data privacy is at the center of all of that, and it touches everything from the time you collect it. If you just think about it, if you were to just go a layer down, it starts with the system that probably was put in decades ago at POS of how you collect that customer data, right? And how you store it, and what systems you pass it along to, how many people touch it, where it gets. So if you just think about it, oh my God, when those systems were designed, it was a totally different world.
We all have to work together, and that's why I love this podcast, is because we are bringing to the forefront what people should be thinking about, how you should be kind of on the edge of your seat, learning more about what you need to know to make your customers' lives better. I mean, that's really the goal for all of us. So this data conversation, I know I get a lot of people being like, what are, like, I need to know how to ethically use this. How does AI play into that? And so it's great to hear from your perspective, like what really could happen behind the scenes when you do implement some of that data and utilize AI for your outcomes. So that's amazing. I was going to say, speaking of better outcomes, I know the data driven culture that we talked about has been obviously a necessity. Like, you can't do anything without the data now. It's so important. So how, in your opinion, do you think companies should embark on this journey to become more data driven? Maybe if you could share some fundamental principles that are really non-negotiables for companies to actually embrace what's working for you. What do you think?
It's a combination of things, right? Leaders, in order to make a data driven decision, leaders have to be able to trust not only the data itself, but also the process by which the data is used, the kind of people who are actually doing the analysis or crunching the numbers or building the model, right? To me, that's the most important thing. Then comes, in that itself, and we just talked a couple of minutes ago about culture, right? And this is, data-driven decisioning is actually a cultural thing. In that culture, and the center of that is like, hey, as a leader, do you trust the data that's in front of you and the people who have put this data together for you, right? Those are at the center of a data-driven decisioning culture. The second part, which is very interesting, and I'll lean more on my corporate strategy and MBA kind of a post-MBA experience, where data tells you many times in terms of decisions, data is P capital truth about the past, but most of the decisions that you're making are about the future based on what you know from the past. So, and in many of those cases, the data itself is more often than not incomplete when you're looking at future decisions. Because you may have a program that's just been there for 6 months, and you want to know whether you want to invest more in it or not, as it hitting the thresholds, and you may just not have the answer. And you know what? I can only tell you this much, and that's where the culture part comes in, right? As the data team, you don't want to be in a position where you're making up stuff. The one thing that my team or anybody they don't want to, they absolutely don't want to make up stuff.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned you'll see data sometimes and it won't give you a complete picture and you kind of have to make some reasonable inferences based on what you're seeing. And it might not be the full picture, but you also have to rely on the team that you have in place and their expertise and their learnings and their experience to kind of help predict the rest of the effort towards the project. Yeah, how do we bring it full circle? And I think that comes with hiring really intelligent people who, can leverage the data, but also can make some reasonable moves with and without. And also just industry expertise where you're I think that this is going to work because of my experience doing X, Y, and Z. So I think it's a balance. And I love that you said it's culture also because you need people who kind of see the benefit of both and just kind of putting your brains together and as a team making those decisions based on the data and despite the data.
Yes, it's data is there. Data and analysis will aid in making the best possible decision. It's better than flying blind. That's the way I always say. Okay, now that I have additional information, I should feel more confident in making a decision as a leader.
Especially when money's involved.
Money's involved in almost everything.
Everything requires dollars. So therefore, you need the data to feel a little bit more confident, especially leaders too. If they're are we going to invest in this? And you're kind of I think we should, but here's what the data says to back it up. It's okay, now you've got two confident pieces. You've got the person you hired and the data that hopefully isn't that you hopefully can trust. And then you make decisions moving forward. I think that's key.
Yes, it's absolutely.
Well, I do want to touch on
people, process, and technology, right? It's people, process, and technology. You got to trust the people who are doing the work, and you have to trust that they're following a certain process and the instructing on the data. The technology is giving them the data.
Well, I think trust is a huge piece that I want to touch on because there are so many conversations around AI and the mistrust that there is and the potential for bias and the importance of avoiding it and how do I want to say this? I'm going to pause for a second. Sorry, I'm reading this question and it doesn't make sense to me, the wording. I'm inclusive customer experience. Okay, practical steps around AI bias. Okay. Okay, so speaking of trust, obviously there's a lot of conversation about AI and maybe the mistrust around the information that it shares, and maybe creating exclusive or inclusive customer experiences. But based on your experience, what are some practical steps and considerations for retailers to algorithms that drive personalization and recommendations and kind of have that trust in AI? I think that there's just a lot of conversations around not being able to trust it.
That's a very, very deep question.
I know. It's open up a can of worms.
Handling bias requires, honestly, an awareness of bias. And this is one of those things where a cross-functional environment, working culture, working teams are very important because as we build, I'll speak to what, as we look at answering questions for our business teams and building models, bias is at the center of a lot of things that we do. We want to be aware of from a technical perspective we could use this, but the question always becomes, should we? Right? Is this the right thing to do? Going back to the culture piece, right? Started in tech. The whole thing was you break it first. We'll build something and break things and then we'll fix it later. You can't do that in retail or DTC, right? Because there is customer trust. There is a very different expectation of how we actually deal with and leverage technology as we deal with customers. Like, see, the whole goal is to improve CX, not freak any of you. Like, oh, how the hell do they know it?
Yeah,
It's
yeah. You don't want to freak anybody out.
it's weird enough that you search for something and then you go on and suddenly start getting emails about it, or all the ads pop up. Thanks to all our friends in the world of technology, you just um, yeah, we try to be better than that. And we work very closely with other teams to ensure that we are working towards eliminating, minimizing bias. But again, it starts with being awareness. That's where it starts. That we're humans. It's about people, as I said at the beginning. It's all about people, because AI systems will behave exactly the way based on the data you feed them. I can feed them a bunch of data sets, and then it'll produce an output, and you'll go, "Oh, why is it like that? You taught it."
Yeah, exactly. And I think being aware is like, yeah, like you said, the first step, and making sure that like when you see something doesn't feel right, I guess that does lead us to think that there has to be some human intervention at that point to make sure that the data, like it's almost like a double quality control check, and making sure that you're not using the data in a biased way, or whatever you do capture. I love that you said you kind of color code it and just kind of like make sure that you can kind of see what it gives you, but also knowing when to use it and when to not use it. So I guess my next question would be like, how do you guys specifically ensure that your AI applications, or whatever technology you use to help you market to your customers, like helps reflect that diversity and inclusivity of your customer base?
Well, just to build on the earlier answer, right? What we do is there are questions um, that require different types of answers, right? So while we are able to look at certain fields, there's never red, green, orange, right? There are certain questions that I can answer in aggregate, never the individual. Again, I mentioned that earlier as well. We can talk about groups of people. They belong to this category, this segment, this subsegment. This geographical area differs from that geographical area. That market's different from this market in aggregates. Humans play a big role in how those systems are built, what's fed into that system, what is how it is utilized. I mean, it's a very good and human AI mix, and we are learning. And I don't want to say like, okay, we know everything about how to do this the best way. We are learning. It's a journey for us, and we are constantly trying to say, okay, how do we do this? What's the next version? How does the next iteration look better? Not only for our customers, for ourselves, for our customers, and all the parties involved, right? Um, so that's how we work. Human AI
So you're
mix here.
saying humans are not obsolete just yet?
Yes, absolutely. I'm very confident of that. What
Yes,
we do
yes.
will be different. What we do will be different. How we do it will be different. But humans, I think, are going to actually be more important, both not only in validating what goes into the systems, but also in validating what the system is telling and is actually telling us and understanding. Right if we don't, one of the other things is if we don't understand why a system's telling us something, we're not going to use it. We have explainable AI, as one of my friends likes to call it, is more important than just AI, right? So if you cannot say why this is the right message for the customer, why this is the right recommendation for the customer, if that fails, then
What do we even have? Yeah.
exactly, right?
And you said it was explainable AI? Yeah, no, that's super interesting because I feel like there is a lot of times where I miss it doesn't hit the mark yet. And I think things are changing so quickly, and you still need, I think some people are like letting it go on autopilot and just like, I don't think you can at this point. I think you still have to drive, but I mean, it's going to drive itself, but I think you still have to manually, steer the ship, if you will. I mean, we recently spoke about this, that the OMR conference in Germany, and our CEO was talking about, we're going to be the co-pilots. Like the AI might fly the plane, but we need to be the co-pilots. Maybe even in a sports reference, like you've got the play-by-play and you've got the color commentator. Like you need two people to like make sure that everything goes off without a hitch. I'm sure you have to navigate that as well.
Absolutely, and that's where the kind of one of the things that I learned in strategy that I get to apply all the time is trade-offs. You don't have to chase everything, right? You have to know why you are chasing um, a technology or a solution or what have you, right? It's one thing to say, hey, you know what, I want to check it out. That's a different thing, but you don't have to build everything. You don't have to implement the latest one, because that's where you go back to saying, what is the problem that I'm trying to solve for my customer?
Especially when you're evaluating technology that can help you in your day to day. As a technology provider, Bloomreach, we work with a lot of retailers on just making your data work better for you, and that's the key. And that's why we wanted to talk to you and kind of break it down. And we actually have an episode coming up to talk to the founders of the Retail AI Council. So they're a community that's come together to kind of empower retailers and technology providers and allow technology to inform retailers on like what they should be thinking about. But a lot of times technology is companies are running with this information, but retailers are just simply crawling. And so we have to like bridge that gap. And I think that that's where podcasts like this, communities like that can play a big role on just informing people on what you need to know and also what's coming on the horizon, and really how you can leverage the tools that are available to you, because things are moving fast and it's hard to cut through the noise, right? Like I go to a conference and there's technology vendors everywhere and I'm like, who does what? What problems are you solving? And that's the biggest piece. Like people just need to know, what problem are you solving and how can I leverage my data?
Yes. I look forward to that podcast. Actually, I want to see that.
Yes, that's a nice little teaser for y'all. Well, this has been amazing. I loved having you on the show. Your perspective is super unique, and I love talking about all things data, AI, and e-commerce. But before we go, would you like to tell our listeners anything that you currently have in the works, anything that you're excited about on the horizon that you can share?
I think so. First of all, thank you very much. It's been exciting talking to you. So really appreciate Elena being able to talk to you, spending time with you. It's been fantastic. We are looking to really excited by, as everyone else is, by the generative AI piece, right? All the things that are happening. We are looking at. I can say this: we are on the cloud. Everyone knows AWS is what we talked about it publicly. So looking at AWS Bedrock to drive that. And then in terms of, we also have a CDP. So one of the biggest things for us is to go up that continuum, like everything else in the world of data, taking our CDP, using our CDP, going up the maturity curve, solving some really exciting use cases, leveraging AI to improve CX. Right at the end of the day, that's the game, right? We really want to make our customers' experience frictionless, right? And that's what we're really looking for, and you should be able to see all of that in the coming months.
That's so exciting. Well, we can't wait to see what you're up to. Obviously, give him a follow on LinkedIn if you want to connect. But thank you all for listening. Share this episode with your data-driven friend and rate us 5 stars on whatever you listen to us on. So until next time, we'll see you.